Hello everybody and welcome to the Summit Experience. Sorry, my AC is running, so it's making a bit of noise. I hope you guys can hear me well. I closed my window because you guys always complain that there's a lot of light. So I closed my window, so it's a bit dark. But, you know, I'm a dark person. And my skin is so freaking smooth. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyways, so, you know, when I go through things, I always speak positively to myself. It helps me feel better. It's kind of like how when I had body issues, and it's funny because at that time I was actually very fit, but when I was going through high school, there was a lot of bullying. You know, the African, booty scratcher and everything. You know, my accent was a lot thicker then, so there was a lot of bullying and whatnot, and that I went through. And one thing I started doing, I don't know, I didn't really hear it from anybody. I didn't really see it anywhere. But one thing that hit me, a way to fix it, was to walk around naked. So I started walking around naked. Because have you guys noticed, like, and to my plus size ladies and men, have you noticed that sometimes when you look at yourself in the mirror, you kind of like, you squirm a little bit? It's like, ugh, like that's my body. Have you noticed that? I found that one of the ways to fix that, it might not work for everybody, but it worked for me, is walk around naked. Every time you pass a reflective surface, look at yourself. You will notice yourself, look at it. Become comfortable in your own skin. And that's not saying that you shouldn't want to get fit, live a healthy life or whatever. But it's saying that, doing those things just for the sake of not liking yourself can be detrimental to you. So that's not what I wanted to talk about. But I don't know. You guys know I talk a lot and I go off. Because you even notice, even at the gym, there are those people, you have friends that can go like 2 days without going to the gym. They go and they spend hours, and that's not a bad thing. Getting healthy is not a bad thing. But the reason people react like that when they go to the gym is because the issue is not being handled. The issue they think is the body, but the issue is not the body. The issue is the mind, and that's what they're suffering from. It's their perspective and perception of self. Anyways, now let's talk about the disease of the soul. I just had a conversation with my roommate's dad. Remember, you guys know the narcissist, and I told you guys that every time we have an argument, the dad will show up. He has shown up before. I didn't want to talk to him. I just walked away. I acted like he didn't exist. But today he came and he met me in the living room and he started talking. How are you doing? Blah 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 blah. And he went into the same rant of trying to justify his son's actions. But I kept trying to get it across to him. Because he's telling me, oh, it's just perspective. It's your perspective. It's your reaction. And his son does the same thing. And like I've shared with you before, I don't like to pacify things. I'm a very straightforward person. I'm a very blunt person. I don't have time to pacify situations. Say what you mean and mean what you say. It's just how it is with me. And I live my life that way. If I fall short of that, I go into like a depressive state because I judge myself and I become like, oh my God, you disappointed someone, you disappointed yourself. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Now, the reason I'm making this conversation, I'm making this talk, is because he kept trying to bring up perspective, and he's a shaman. He's Chinese medicine, he's a shaman. That's what he does for work. So I actually do have respect for him, and I have, and I don't think that has changed, even though I can see it for what it is. I don't think my respect for him has changed. I just understand that he has a different perspective. But now this is to all those people that like to pacify situations and run around the situation. Like I said before, if there's shit on your living room floor, you can spray Febreze on it. You can do whatever it is you want to do on it, but that shit is still there. I don't pacify situations. I fix them. There's a difference. Because you pacify situations, you numb them for a little while. But that same problem will show up, and it will show up stronger. When you have a disease in the body, you start feeling the pain, you start feeling the aches, whatever it is, the discomfort, you start getting lightheaded. That's not time to start wishing. You don't start wishing like, oh, this is all in my head. This is all. No. You go to the doctor. The doctor tells you what's wrong. You fix it. The longer you let that disease stay in the body, the more it spreads, the more dangerous it gets. That's cancer of the soul. And that's, I guess, part of the problem I have I'm I'm trying to find the right way to say this. That's part of the problem I have with some spiritists, you know, and with all due respect, that's part of the problem I have with some spiritists, is that they don't tell people what to do. They don't tell them how to fix their problems. They tell them how to pacify the problem. But the problem doesn't go anywhere. The disease doesn't go anywhere. If you're having an argument with someone, and I told him, he was sitting here, we talked for like 30 minutes until eventually he got a phone call and he's like, oh, I have an appointment, I have to go, and he left. You know, okay. But if you have a problem, you don't pacify it. And maybe at that moment, that's what you have to do, because maybe you're not in the right headspace to handle it. But the goal should be to fix the problem, not to pacify the problem, not to numb the problem and hope that it goes away. You don't do that. When you're checking your body and you feel a lump somewhere on your breast, you don't say, oh, I'm going to wish that it goes away. You can wish that. Maybe it will go away. Maybe it's just a temporal thing. But when you've been noticing that pain or that numb for a while, chances are maybe you want to go get yourself checked. You might have some kind of blood clot. You might have cancer growing on your breast. You might have different things happening. You go and get it checked as soon as you can so that it can be fixed. It can be fixed so that it doesn't go into something bigger. We need to stop with this idea and this praising of pacification, because that doesn't fix anything. We really need to stop doing that. You know, especially our spiritists. And that's not about anybody on YouTube. It's because I've had this conversation with him. And it's something I've noticed even with, you know, my readings and other people and, you know, people telling me, well, this reader told me this, you know, and I say, yes, I understand that. But that's a temporal fix. It doesn't get rid of the problem. It's temporal, meaning it will fade away. Same way like I always use, you know, shit on the living room floor. You spray Febreze, that Febreze will eventually go away. That shit will still be there. And the longer it stays there, the more it stinks. You know, you have to fix things. Maybe that's because I'm a Virgo and I'm a fixer. But I don't see that as a bad thing. I understand that you can't fix everything. But I don't see that as a bad thing. Because I kept trying to tell him, you know, there's cause and effect in this world. And he also brought up the fact that, you know, you're a very sharp person, you know, and he tried to paint me like I'm a judgmental person. I said, no, I'm actually not judgmental. But he brought up some things and he said, you know, you're a big black guy and maybe, you know, he's just feeling some kind of way and blah, 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 no, blah, blah. I'm like, this whole time, you're telling me everything that I'm doing wrong, but you're ignoring the fact that your son is a gaslighter and he's narcissistic. And I said it straight to his face. You're enabling your son, and you're making him more of a gaslighter and a narcissist. You're enabling him. It's not by coincidence that he's had 4 or 5 different roommates come in here and live here. It's not by coincidence. You know, you notice the patterns to things, and I just looked at the time, it's 3:33 p.m. I don't know why, but I just like flicked to it. I don't know. But it's not by coincidence that he's had 4 or 5 different roommates come and stay here, and all of them have left except me before their due date. Every single one of them has left before their due date. I am the only one that is here still. It's not by coincidence. You notice the patterns. I'm a Virgo. Maybe that's why I notice patterns so well. But that's how I think. If it happens one time, it could be a mistake. If it happens second time, okay, maybe you forgot. By the third time, it's a pattern. There's a way to think. Same way with the dishes that we had that argument over. It happened the first time, I said, okay, it's a mistake. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It happened the second time, I said, okay, a pattern is forming here. By the third time, then I'm like, okay, so now it's definitely a pattern. He's doing dishes and he's leaving mine. And that has to be addressed. The way I addressed it perhaps wasn't the best, but honestly, to be quite honest, I wouldn't have handled it any other way, because the first thing I asked him, why are the dishes in the sink? And he told me, because it's yours. That's what triggered me, and my brain just started going off, and I started shaking, and I was like, oh my God, I'm about to cuss him out. And I tried not to cuss him out, but I was just like, because it's mine, bitch, I do the dishes all the time. Do you kind of get what I'm trying to say? So don't pacify situations. And the dishes, again, and it's cause and effect. The effect of what is happening is what we're handling, and the reasons we've been having issues, and he's having issues with just about everybody, is because his father, like they would listen to Abraham Hicks. He's referenced that to me before. I don't listen to Abraham Hicks. I don't, not for any reason, but because I don't. I do think he might be a great spiritualist. I've just never really listened to him that well. Probably he'll probably say some things that I like, but right now in my headspace and what I'm going through, I don't really have that energy to, or maybe I should. You know, it will help me understand some things about myself. But I think Sandra Butler did a really great job at that. She gave me, as a client of mine, and she gave me this beautiful, beautiful reading spread of my chart, and what really stuck out to me was that my Mars was in Mercury, which I didn't ever know. So we're experiencing Mercury retrograde and in Mars retrograde, and my Mars is in Mercury. So like I've been telling people, it's like I'm getting a triple whammy. You know, like it's like a triple whammy for me. But going back to the topic, so I just wanted to make this talk so that I can get that across. Stop pacifying things. If you pacify them and know that they're temporal. Keep it in your mind that this is just because I don't want to handle this right now. I don't have the energy, I don't have the time, whatever the case. So I'm going to pacify it right now until we can really handle it. But if not, because like I said, it's just going to come up and come up and come up. And as the more it comes up, the more it builds up. And then it explodes like the tower, because that's exactly what a tower is. People always say the tower is a sudden change. The tower is not a sudden change. The tower is built up. Keep in mind, a tower is supposed to be, what is a tower? Tower, you see that? It's supposed to be an establishment, a structure that is supposed to stand the test of time. A tower is built to protect, you know, when medieval times and whatnot, towers were built to protect the community. You know, they had the walls and everything around them. It's supposed to protect, it's supposed to stand the test of time. It's supposed to stand invaders and whatnot. So it's built up with the intention of being sturdy. It's something that is built up. But because the tower's foundation is faulty, the tower comes crumbling down because the foundation of it is faulty. And that's why you have a tower. It might feel like a sudden change, but it's not sudden. Had the faulty foundation been noticed while they were building, maybe when they experienced like a tremble or whatever it was that gave signs, because there will always be signs that something is not right. When you get those signs, that's when you start thinking, okay, how do I fix it? What is wrong? What do I need to go back to and look at? So that it doesn't all of a sudden fall on your head. And, you know, and I'm one of those people, and that's why I start getting to the Queen of Swords easily, because I build up, and it builds up, and the mistake that I used to make before was that before I went on my rant, I would not warn. Now I've learned to warn. I make it known. Okay, you're going too far. Okay, watch yourself. You know, I'll warn at least 3 times. You know, I have a 3-strike rule, and as you guys saw in that video, I even talked about it. I have a 3-strike rule. I will warn as it's building up. I will warn as it's building up. And then when it gets to a certain point, don't get mad at me when I explode. Because what had to be fixed, the disease, the symptoms were there all along. And I make them known to you. That's how I live my life. I don't know if that's going to be helpful to someone, but I'm thinking it's going to be helpful to a lot of people because there are just too many people pacifying situations. We don't live in the ethers. When are people going to get that? We do not live in the ethers. You live on earth, in the physical realm. You're here to experience what it feels like to be on earth. Your soul made a conscious decision to come to earth and experience humanity. You don't live in the ethers. So stop living in the ethers and you know, it's like those people, like I said it before, that will be sick and they'll say God will fix it. Well, yeah, it's true. God could fix it. So on rare occasions, perhaps. But generally, no. There are doctors. God has put doctors, other human beings in line, spiritists, whatever else, to help you kind of work on your issues and heal yourself. Or get help so you can be healed and you can be in a better place. It's not to say God will fix it. It's not to say, oh, I'm existing in the ethers. You don't exist in the ethers. If you don't eat, you will die. It's a fact. If you do not eat, the body needs to be sustained. You will die. That's the physical implication of what you're doing. because you don't live in the ethers. Your soul is immortal. You are not immortal. Your body is not. Does that make sense to anybody? So please, 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 guys, while you're listening to all these spiritists, keep that in your mind, because there's just so much misinformation out there. I believe very strongly that, I believe anybody that takes on the mantle of being a spiritist, that has good intentions. If you're called to be a shaman, you have good intentions. But a lot of the times we spend so much time reading books and listening to other people's ideologies instead of going directly to source, instead of praying to God and letting God guide you through. And it's true, yes, you can learn from that, but it's kind of like when you have a parent and your parent warns you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and you don't listen, and then you do it and you feel the pain of it, and you live through the implications of it, then you really understand why it's not. It's like a child that is always going towards the stove, and you tell the child, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. At some point, and I did this with my little brother, at some point, you let them go and you touch the stove. He never went to the stove after that. Every 2 seconds. Oh my God, what are you doing? Don't go to the stove. Don't do that. Don't do that. Bad. There he goes, waddling. I'm like, okay, bitch, go touch it. And guess what? After he got burned and he cried, he never went to the stove again. Is that the best way to teach a child? Probably not. But I've come to learn that we learn best through experience. That sounds horrible, but it's the truth. I had to let him go touch the stove. And I had a moment of reaction where I saw him going and he was reaching for it. And I had a moment, it was like time slowed down. And I'm like, do I run or do I let it pass by? Do I run or do I let it pass by? Do I run or do I let it pass by? Because he's always hanging around me when I'm in the kitchen or whatnot. Well, not now. He's kind of grown up a little bit. But I had that moment where it was like time stopped. And I was like, do I run and grab him or do I let it pass by? Do I run and grab him or do I let it pass by? I was like, okay, let it pass by. And I just stood there and he touched it and then I ran. I waited till he touched it and then I ran and I grabbed him. But I knew by that time it had burned him. At least enough. He's not scarred or anything. But it had burnt him enough for him to know he never goes to the stove again. And guess what? He never went to the stove again. He's now what? Anyways, I don't want to give too much information. But let's just say he's not gone to the stove again. So that's how I live my life. And that's how I see, everybody's always talking about the ethers and the ethers and the ethers. And I'm just like, ugh, shut up. We don't live in the ethers. You live on earth. The earthly realm has rules. The twin flame thing, the soulmate thing, you have agreements that you made in the soul realm, but those agreements do not always have, because things that are decided in the fifth dimension don't always transfer the same way in the third dimension, or whatever it is we exist in, the third dimension, the 3D dimension, so to speak. What exists in the fifth dimension doesn't always translate to what exists in the third dimension. So you could have an agreement with someone that we're going to be this and this and that, but when you come into the physical world and you're born into human form to different parents, maybe on different continents, and go through different conditioning to that time that you're supposed to meet at 21, to the universe brings you guys together, a lot has happened that was not planned. Believe it or not, a lot has happened that was not planned, because the universe does not govern us that way. We do have free will. I wish people would understand that. So let's be mindful. I've talked about 3 things. Body image, I've talked about living in the ethers and fixing, shit on the living room floor, so to speak. And I've also talked about, well, I don't remember the last one. What was it? The soulmate thing, the soulmate experience thing. So I hope that helped somebody. And I wish you guys the best. Have a blessed one. Bye-bye.